day to all of you. Ruben sir once again from the channel Great Oak
Class.
Tree. Students, I would like to remind you, if you would like to watch my channel and if you are interested in watching my YouTube channel, please subscribe to this channel Great Oak Tree. All the important poems and some few lessons would be there in this channel. Now today I've come to you for the class 10 students the lesson, the sermon at Benares. Now, you know what is a sermon? Sermon is a spiritual speech, a speech given by a sannyasi, a speech given by a priest or a monk. That is called a sermon. So now we are going to study about the lesson, the sermon at Benares. Now I'm going to start the lesson. While I'm reading, please do keep your textbooks in front of you, and you also please do read with me so that it would be easier for you to understand. Gautama Buddha, 1563 BC to 483 BC, began life as a prince named Siddhartha Gautama in northern India. Now this story is based on Gautama Buddha and about his sermon, the first sermon that he had given at Benares. Now Gautama Buddha, he was born in the year 563 BC and he died in 483 BC. Now he began his life like a prince. He was a son of a king and he began his life as a prince, and his real name was Siddhartha Gautama in northern India. At 12, he was sent away for schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures, and 4 years later, he returned home to marry a princess. So when he was 12 years old, when Siddhartha Gautama was 12 years old, he was sent for schooling to study the sacred books. Sacred means holy. So he was sent to study the holy sacred scriptures. Sacred scriptures means the holy books. So at the age of 12, he was sent to school to study the sacred scriptures, and 4 years later, after completing his course, 4 years later, he returned to the palace and he was married to a princess. They had a son and lived for 10 years as a befitted royalty. And they had a son also, and they lived a happy family. Befitted royalty means a properable family and a happy family. They lived for 10 years. At about the age of 25, the prince, heretofore shielded from the sufferings of the world while out hunting, chanced upon a sick man, then an aged man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. So at the age of 25, when he was 25 years old, now the prince, heretofore, before now, till then he did not know any sufferings that was happening in the world. He thought that just like him, he was a prince and he lived a life of luxury. And he did not realize that there was poverty in the world. And so one day, it happened that he went for hunting. And on the way, while he was going for hunting, there were so many incidents that happened to him that affected him very much. Now let's see what are the incidents that changed his mind. The incidents were, he came upon, chance means by accidentally, that's the meaning. Accidentally, he came upon a sick man, then an aged man, then afterwards a funeral procession. You know what is a funeral? When a dead body is taken for burial. So he happened to see a funeral procession, and finally he saw a monk, a priest, begging for money, begging for alms. So these are the sights. What are the sights that changed his mind? That's a question. The sights that changed his mind was that he came upon a sick man, an old man, a very old man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for money. These sights so moved him that he at once went out into the world to seek enlightenment concerning the sorrows he had witnessed. So these sights touched him very much, moved him, means touched him. These sights touched him very much, and so he left the palace. He left the palace and he went away, wandering from place to place in search of enlightenment. Enlightenment means knowledge. He went searching for enlightenment concerning the sorrows that prevailed in the world. He wanted to see for himself the sorrows that prevailed in the world. And so he left a princely life, a life that a king should lead, or a prince should lead in luxury in a palace. He left his palace and went away. He wandered for 7 years and finally sat under a peepal tree where he vowed. Vowed means promised. So he kept on wandering and wandering for 7 years. At last one day, he sat under a peepal tree. And when he sat under the peepal tree, he promised. Now what did he promise? Until enlightenment came. So he promised that he would not get up. He would not have food. He would not have water. He would not have anything. He would just sit and meditate until he got the enlightenment. He got the knowledge. Enlightenment after 7 days. He renamed the tree, the Bodhi tree, the tree of wisdom. And then within 7 days, he wandered for 7 years and he did not get any kind of enlightenment. So one day he came and he sat under a peepal tree and he promised himself. He took a vow, he took a pledge. Now what was the pledge? That I would not get up from this place. I would not eat anything. I would fast completely until I get enlightenment. And within 7 days, Buddha got enlightenment. And because of that, he named that peepal tree the Bodhi tree. Now what does the Bodhi tree mean? Tree of wisdom. And that was named the tree of wisdom. And he began to teach and to share his new understanding. And then he got up and he started to go from place to place, teaching people the valuable things of life. He started to teach people the exact value of life. At the point, he became known as the Buddha, the awakened or the enlightened. The Buddha preached his first sermon at the city of Benares, most holy of the dipping places on the river Ganges. So he came to be known. See, people started to know him as the awakened one or the enlightened one. They called him the awakened one or the enlightened one. And then he came to the banks of the river Ganges. And that is the place. Ganges means Ganga. He came to the banks of the river Ganga, and there, that is the place where he gave his first spiritual speech. Sermon. Sermon means spiritual speech. That is the place where he gave his first spiritual speech. River Ganges. The sermon has been preserved and is given here. It reflects the Buddha's wisdom about one inscrutable kind of suffering. Inscrutable means something that you cannot understand. Now sometimes we get a lot of sufferings in our life and we do not know why God is giving us these sufferings. What is the reason that we are having these sufferings? You are not able to understand. You think that I am good, I am not doing anything that is wrong, I am not doing anything that is bad, I am living a good life, but still, why am I having all these sufferings? So that is the meaning of saying inscrutable kind of suffering. So this sermon that he gave at the banks of the river Ganges in Benares was preserved and is given here. The sermon below that we are going to study is given here. This reflects Buddha's wisdom. This, if we read, we will understand the wisdom of Buddha and the inscrutable kind of suffering and the sufferings that people undergo. Kissa Gautami had an only son, and he died. In her grief, she carried the dead child to all her neighbors, asking them for medicine. And the people said, "She has lost her senses, the boy is dead." Now there was a woman named Kisa Gautami, and she had only one son, and he died. In her grief, grief means sorrow. So in her sorrow, she could not take it. She could not understand, or she could not accept that her son has died. So what did she do? She carried the dead body of her son, the corpse of her son, and she went around from place to place, and she kept asking people for medicine. She kept asking everyone, "Give me medicine to bring my son back to life." And people looking at her, they said, "She has lost her senses." It means that she has gone crazy. She has gone mad, because no person, no sane person would take a dead body around the place asking people to give them medicine. And so she took her only son, walking around the place asking people for medicine to bring her son back to life. So that is why the people said that she has lost her senses. The boy is dead. At length, Kisa Gautami met a man who replied to her request. "I cannot give thee medicine for thy child, but I know a physician who can." So at length means in short, she came across a man and she asked him for medicine. Now the man replied, what did he reply? "I cannot give you any medicine, but I know a man who can help you." And he directed her to a particular person. He told her that if you go to this person, he would help you. "I have no medicine with me. You go to this particular person and he would help you." And the girl said, "Pray tell me, sir, who is it?" And the man replied, "Go to Sakya Muni, the Buddha." So the girl cried. The girl said, "Sir, tell me, who is the person I should go to?" And he directed her to go to Buddha. He called Buddha Sakya Muni. He said, "You have to go to this particular person who is known as Sakya Muni." Kisa Gautami repaired to Buddha and cried. So she went to Buddha. Repaired means went. That is the meaning. It is a stylish way of using. She went to Buddha and she pleaded of him. What did she say? "Lord and Master, give me the medicine that will cure my boy." So she went there and she told him, "Lord, my Master, give me medicine that would cure my child." The Buddha answered, "I want a handful of mustard seed." And when the girl in her joy promised to procure means get. So all that Buddha told her was, now when she went to Buddha and she told Buddha, "Please give me medicine to bring my only son back to life." What did Buddha tell her? Buddha told her that "I will bring your son back to life, but you must bring me one handful of mustard seed." And that was a very easy thing to do. So she thought that getting mustard seed is very easy. And so what she did was, "I want a handful of mustard seed." And when the girl in her joy promised to procure it, the Buddha added. So the girl was very happy and she promised, "I will get it for you," because it's very easy to get it. But Buddha added another clause. Now what did Buddha add? What clause did Buddha add? Buddha told her the mustard seed must be taken from a house where no one has lost a child, a husband, parent, or a friend. So he said, the mustard seed that you bring should be brought from a house where not a single person, whether it is a friend, whether it is a relative, whether it is a child, whether it is a husband, there should be no one that was dead in that house. If you bring me one handful of mustard seed from such a house where no one has died, then I can cure your son. Poor Kisa Gautami now went from house to house, and the people pitied her and said, pitied means felt sad for her. So she went from house to house asking for a handful of mustard seed. And the people felt sad for her. And they said, "Here is mustard seed, take it." And they told her, "It's very here, take a handful of mustard seed." But when she asked them, asked, "Did a son or daughter or a father or mother die in your family?" They answered her. So she asked them, "Did anyone in your family die? Did a son, did a daughter, did a father, a friend, a relative die in your house?" They answered her. What do they say? "Alas, the living are few, but the dead are many." The reply was, the living are few. That means there are only few people who are living. The dead are many. Many people have died in our house. Now we have only a few people here. Do not remind us of the deepest grief. Don't ask us such a question and remind us of the loss, the great loss, the deepest grief, the great sorrow that we went through when we lost our close ones. And there was no house, but some beloved one had died in it. And there was not a single house where not even a single person had not died. Poor Kisa Gautami now went from house to house, and the people pitied her and said, "Here is mustard seed, take it." But when she asked, "Did a son or daughter or a father or mother die in your family?" they answered her, "Alas, the living are few, but the dead are many. Do not remind us of our deepest grief." And there was no house, but some beloved one had died in it. Kisa Gautami became weary and hopeless. Now she became weary. Weary means tired. And she became hopeless because there was no home that could give her one handful of mustard seed where nobody has died. And sat down at the wayside watching the lights of the city as they flickered up and were extinguished again. So she sat on the roadside and she was looking at the lights. They were lighting, they were flickering. Flickering means they were coming and going, and then they went out. These lights resembles human beings or living things. Their lives are flickering every minute. You will not know when the light will be extinguished. That was a great example to her. She sat on the wayside. She was weary. She was hopeless. She was disappointed. And she looked at the bright lights. And the lights were flickering. They kept on flickering and then they went off. They flicker up and considered the fate of. At last, the darkness of the night reigned everywhere. And at last, it became completely dark. Darkness lived everywhere. Reigned means actually ruled. Darkness ruled over the place. There was complete darkness. And she considered the fate of men, that their lives flicker up and are extinguished again. So now she understood a very important lesson, that just like these lights are the lives of men. They keep flickering and flickering, and one day they will be extinguished. How selfish am I in my grief? Death is common to all. Yet in the valley of desolation, there is path that leads him to immortality, who has surrendered all selfishness. Now she understood a very important lesson. She felt that she was very selfish. How selfish I am in grief. She says that when I was in sorrow, I became very selfish. And then she says, death is common to all. She understood a very important lesson, that death is inevitable. Death cannot, means everyone has to die. It is inevitable. You cannot pass away from death. Death is common to all. Yet in the valley of desolation, and even in that desolation, after death, there is a path to immortality. After you die, your soul goes to immortality. It remains forever. It lives forever. Only the body perishes. Your soul do not perish. Your soul keeps on living and living forever. That is the lesson she learned. Him to immortality who will surrender all selfishness. The Buddha said. Now Buddha said this very important sermon. In the sermon, he added, what did he add? the life of mortals. Mortals means people who will die. They are called mortal. People who will never die, or things that do not die, are everlasting forever or perpetual, are called immortals. So Buddha said, the life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief, combined with pain. So he said that the life of human beings, what is the lives of human beings? In this world is troubled. There is no one in this world that is not troubled. Everyone has their own troubles. Everyone has their own problems. So he says that the life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief. Life is very short. Nobody is going to live forever. Our lives are very short. Our span of life is very short in this world. Brief and combined with pain. So life of mortals, their lives are brief. They are troubled and there is a lot of pain in their lives. For there is not any means by which those who have been born can avoid dying. So he says, there is no by any means, nobody has found any medicine. There is no method that if a man is born, he will die. He cannot be without dying. There is no means of it. There is no method of it that a man will live forever. After reaching old age, there is death. After you reach old age, you will die. Of such a nature are living beings. This is the nature of living beings. They will grow. They will become old, and one day they would die. That is the nature of human beings. As ripe fruits are early in danger of falling, so mortals when born are always in danger of death. When a fruit takes place, when the fruit becomes mature, it starts to ripe. And once it becomes completely mature, completely ripe, what happens to the fruit? It drops from this tree. Similarly, when man becomes old, he has to die. As all earthen vessels made by the potter end in being broken. So every earthen vessels that are made of mud, they will surely one day break. They will not be without breaking. So is the life of mortals. Both young and adult, both those who are fools and those who are wise, all fall into the power of death. All are subject to death. It means that there is nobody that can be without dying. Whether you are rich, whether you are poor, whether you are famous, whether you are wise, whether you are a fool, whoever is born in the earth will one day have to face death. Of those who overcome by death, depart from life. He says, those who overcome from death, depart from life. A father cannot save his son, no kinsman. Kinsman means near relatives. It means everyone has to die. A father can never save his son. The father may be the millionaire, may be the richest man in the world, but he can never save his son from dying. He can never save his relatives from dying. A father cannot save his son, no kinsman their relation. Mark, while relatives are looking on and lamenting deeply one by one, mortals are carried off like an ox that is led to the slaughter. He says, mark, listen. When in one house, people are sorry for somebody that has died. People are crying over a dead body. At the same time, many dead bodies in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world, are being carried to the cemetery, are being carried to the burial ground to be buried. Therefore, the wise do not grieve, knowing the terms of the world. He says, so the wise person should not grieve, should not feel sad when a person dies, because that is life. You be born, you die. You cannot grieve over it. Don't keep grieving forever. If you keep grieving forever, if you keep crying forever or feeling sorry forever, there is no benefits from that. You are going to spoil your health. That is what the Buddha says in the next paragraph. Not from weeping, nor from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, his pain will be greater and his body will suffer. He says by weeping or by grieving, no one will obtain peace of mind. You will not be able to obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, on the opposite, what will happen? The pain will increase and your body will suffer. You will become unhealthy. You will spoil your body. Your body is going to suffer. He will make himself sick and pale. The person who is grieving and crying over a person who has died all his life is going to make himself sick and himself pale. Yet the dead are not saved by his lamentation. Lamentation means sorrow. Yet, however you grieve, however you cry, however you lament, however you feel sorry for others, you can never bring back the dead to life. So there is no use, according to Buddha, to cry when somebody dies. He who seeks peace should draw out the arrow of lamentation and complain and grief. If you want peace, take away that feeling of sadness. Take away the grief of your heart. Come to terms that it is this what should happen in the world. Nobody can stop it. So you have to come to the terms of life. He who has drawn out the arrow and has become composed. Composed means comforted. If you take away the grief from your heart, then you will be comforted. Has drawn out the arrow and has become composed, will obtain peace of mind. That kind of a person can obtain peace of mind. He who has overcome all sorrow will become free from sorrow and be blessed. And he who has overcome all the sorrow will become blessed after some time. Now this is one source taken from Betty Renshaw. It is from a book called, it's from a college reader that was written in 1975. So this is the end of the lesson. It's a beautiful lesson for every one of us to learn. It gives us a good message. The good message that is given in this lesson is that please do not grieve over death, because death is inevitable. It has to be experienced by every single living thing in the world. If you are born, you will die. There is no use of crying or lamenting or grieving over a dead body, because by no means can you bring him back to life. So I hope that you understood this lesson. Once again, I would ask you to subscribe and share and come back to my YouTube channel and watch the other lessons before your board exam. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.